Arthur had built his life on forgetting. After graduating from Columbia Law 3 years ago, top of his class, thank God, by a margin so slim it still haunted his dreams, he'd fled the ivory towers of Morningside Heights for the gritty pulse of Brooklyn, trading debate club rivalries for the quiet grind of a public defender's office in Flatbush. It was supposed to be redemption, fighting for the underdogs his father, a silver-tongued corporate shark in Midtown, had spent a lifetime devouring. Arthur's days blurred into late nights poring over case files under the harsh glow of his desk lamp, the kind that buzzed like a guilty conscience, while his evenings dissolved into solitary runs along the East River, where the water's dark churn mirrored the ache he never named. He was good at it, the work, unraveling plea deals for kids caught in the system's jaws, negotiating with prosecutors who saw him as just another bleeding heart liberal from the Ivy League. But on nights when the city lights flickered like distant accusations, he'd pour a glass of bourbon, neat, and let his mind wander back to those fluorescent-lit classrooms, to the one voice that could dismantle his arguments with surgical precision and leave him breathless, exposed. Elias Kane. The name alone still tasted like ash. They'd met in contracts, first semester, when Professor Langford had paired them for a cold call on Hadley versus Baxendale, and Elias had leaned back in his chair, all casual arrogance, dismantling Arthur's foreseeability analysis with a smirk that said he knew exactly how it would sting. "Hale, you're romanticizing the law like it's some fairy tale," Elias had drawled, his southern drawl, traces of Charleston, South Carolina, polished but unyielding, cutting through the room like a knife through silk. Remediation isn't about intent, it's about cold, hard expectation. You think the court gives a damn about what the breaching party felt? The class had tittered, and Arthur had felt heat crawl up his neck, not just from the rebuttal but from the way Elias's eyes lingered, challenging, almost hungry. From there, it escalated, study group sabotage, whispered barbs in the library stacks, a mock trial where Elias cross-examined him so ruthlessly that Arthur's closing argument faltered, earning him a rare dressing down from the judge. They were oil and fire, Arthur the meticulous planner from Connecticut's manicured suburbs, Elias the wildcard from the low-country marshes, where gators lurked and family legacies were etched in salt and spite. But beneath the barbs, there were moments, fleeting, forbidden, that Arthur replayed like forbidden reels in the quiet of his one-bedroom walk-up. Like the night after the law review mixer when the keg had run dry and the rooftop of Avery Hall overlooked the glittering sprawl of Harlem, Elias had cornered him by the ledge, breath warm with whiskey, and said, "You fight dirty, Hale." "I like that." His hand had brushed Arthur's arm, accidental or not, sending a jolt that Arthur dismissed as adrenaline, but which lingered like a bruise. All the time in civil procedure, when Elias had slid into the seat beside him during a fire drill evacuation, their shoulders pressing in the chaos of the courtyard, and murmured, "Admit it, you live for this, the rush of outsmarting me." Arthur had shoved him away, laughing it off as frat boy posturing, but his pulse had betrayed him, hammering a rhythm that echoed in his dreams for weeks. Now, 4 years later, Arthur was 28, his hair a touch longer, his suits a size looser from skipped meals and stress-shed pounds, and he thought he'd outrun it all. He dated a barista named Theo with laugh lines and easy affection, a paralegal from Queens who quoted Rumi between depositions, but none of them stuck, none ignited that treacherous spark. Until this rainy Tuesday afternoon in a hole-in-the-wall cafe on Bedford Avenue, where the scent of espresso and wet wool hung heavy, and Elias Kane stood dripping in the doorway, looking every bit the rising star Arthur had stalked on LinkedIn in weak moments, partner track at a boutique firm in Soho, specializing in antitrust, his profile pic capturing that same half-smile that could disarm a jury. Elias spotted him too, of course. The man's instincts were predator-sharp. He tilted his head, water sluicing from his dark curls, longer now, curling at the nape in a way that screamed intentional dishevelment, and wove through the tables with the grace of someone who owned whatever room he entered. Arthur's fingers tightened on his mug, the ceramic scalding his palm, as Elias dropped into the chair opposite without invitation. "Arthur Hale," Elias said, voice low and laced with that old amusement, like they were picking up a conversation from yesterday. "Fancy meeting you here. Still saving the world one misdemeanor at a time." Arthur's throat closed. Up close, Elias hadn't changed much, olive skin glowing under the cafe's Edison bulbs, a faint scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood mishap he'd once confessed over cheap beer gator bite, he'd joked, but his eyes had darkened with the memory. He wore a charcoal wool coat over a crisp white Oxford, sleeves cuffed to reveal a leather watch that probably cost more than Arthur's monthly rent, and his cologne, something woody, like cedar and regret, wafted across the table, pulling Arthur under like a riptide. "What do you want, Kane?" Arthur managed, his voice steadier than he felt. He glanced at his screen, the half-finished motion for summary judgment blurring under the weight of Elias's presence. Outside, a cab horn blared, the city indifferent to the seismic shift in this corner booth. Elias leaned forward, elbows on the scarred oak table, his gaze stripping away the years like they were tissue paper. "Maybe just coffee. Maybe to say I'm sorry." The words hung there, simple and seismic, cracking the fragile peace Arthur had armored himself with. Sorry for the late-night emails laced with condescension, for the rumor mill whispers that Arthur was too emotional for big law, for the way he'd looked at Arthur during graduation, like he was seeing something he couldn't have. Arthur laughed, sharp and without humor, the sound swallowed by the espresso machine's hiss. "Sorry doesn't rewrite history, Elias. You made your choice, top of the class, your father's firm waiting in Charleston. I made mine." But even as he said it, his heart twisted, because the truth was messier, the betrayal that had shattered them both, the one Arthur had buried under case law and client files, the one that started with a kiss neither admitted to and ended with a door slammed in fury. Elias's expression flickered, something raw, unguarded, like a crack in marble, and for a heartbeat, Arthur saw the boy beneath the polish, the one who'd grown up dodging his preacher father's sermons on sin, hiding his own truths in the salt marshes where no one could hear the waves crash like confessions. "History's a draft, Hale. We can revise it." He reached across the table, fingers brushing Arthur's knuckles, and the touch was electric, a live wire sparking memories Arthur had no right to revisit. But he pulled back, the chair scraping like a verdict. "Some drafts are final." He stood, tossing a 10 on the table, his coat slung over one arm as he pushed toward the door. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but inside, the storm raged on, Elias's eyes burning into his back like a promise or a curse. Arthur stepped into the street, the cold biting his cheeks, and wondered if enemies ever truly became strangers, or if they just learned to bleed quieter. As he walked the 3 blocks to his subway stop, the encounter replayed in fragments, Elias's laugh lines deepening around his mouth, the way his throat bobbed when he swallowed hard, the faint stubble shadowing his jaw that Arthur inexplicably wanted to trace. By the time he collapsed onto the damp bench at the Atlantic Avenue platform, the train's rumble approaching like judgment, Arthur admitted the truth he'd evaded for years, hating Elias Kane had been the easy part. It was the wanting that nearly broke him. Back in his apartment that night, the space felt smaller, the walls closing in with stacks of legal pads and takeout containers. He poured another bourbon, the amber liquid catching the lamplight, and pulled up his old law school yearbook on his phone. God, why did he still have the app? There they were, side by side in the moot court photo, Arthur, stiff-shouldered and serious, Elias with that cocky tilt to his head. Flipping to the dedication page, Arthur traced the scrawled note Elias had slipped into his locker on the last day: "You win this round, Hale. But life's not a brief, it's the appeal that counts." He'd crumpled it then, furious at the vulnerability it implied, but now, unfolding the digital ghost, it felt like prophecy. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with lecture halls and low country dawns, Elias's voice murmuring clauses from the restatement like love letters. When Arthur woke to his alarm at 6:15, the city stirring beyond his fire escape, he resolved to bury it deeper. Work waited, a hearing for a client named Javier, 19 and terrified, facing deportation for a forged green card his mother had pushed him into. Arthur dressed in his best grey suit, the one that made him feel invincible, and headed out, the autumn chill nipping at his collar. But as he navigated the crowded F train, sardined between commuters scrolling feeds and nursing hangovers, his phone buzzed. "Unknown number, can't stop thinking about your eyes, Hale. Coffee tomorrow? E?" Arthur's thumb hovered, heart a war drum, before he typed back, "Delete my number." He hit send, the car jolting forward, but the lie tasted like defeat. Because deep down, in the marrow of his bones, he knew Elias Kane wasn't done with him. And neither, God help him, was Arthur. The public defender's office in Flatbush was a fortress of fluorescent despair, where the air smelled of stale coffee and desperation, and the bullpen hummed with the low murmur of caseworkers haggling over plea bargains like traders at a flea market. Arthur arrived 10 minutes early for Javier's hearing, his tie knotted too tight, a talisman against the Elias-shaped tremor still quaking through him. He nodded to Maria, the veteran paralegal with silver streaks in her braid and a glare that could wilt orchids, who slid a fresh stack of affidavits across her desk. "Judge Harlan's in a mood today, mijo. Make it sing." Javier waited in the holding room, a lanky kid with eyes like polished obsidian and a tattoo of the Virgin Mary blooming on his forearm, faded from too many summers hauling crates at the Hunts Point market. "Mr. Hale," he said, voice cracking as Arthur briefed him on the immigration angle, "lean on family ties, the aunt in the Bronx who'd sponsored him at 12. Arthur talked him through the script, his words steady, practiced, but his mind snagged on Elias's text, the casual presumption of it, like 4 years hadn't carved canyons between them. The courtroom in the Kings County Supreme Building was a relic of better intentions, vaulted ceilings echoing with the shuffle of feet on linoleum, wooden benches scarred by generations of fidgeting defendants. Arthur stood at the bar, Javier beside him in a borrowed blazer that hung loose on his frame, while the prosecutor, a slick kid from Fordham named Reynolds, laid out the charges with the enthusiasm of a door-to-door salesman. "Your Honor, the defendant's actions undermine the very fabric of our immigration system." Arthur countered, voice rising like a crescendo in a Verdi opera, weaving in the human threads, Javier's mother's cancer battle back in Guatemala, the remittances that kept her alive, the American dream deferred but not denied. Judge Harlan, a grizzled ex-prosecutor with jowls like a basset hound, leaned forward, his gavel a silent threat. When Arthur finished, the room held its breath, and Harlan's ruling landed soft, continuance granted, with a nod toward deferred action. Javier gripped Arthur's hand after, tears carving tracks down his cheeks. "Gracias, señor. You fought like family." Out in the hallway, Arthur exhaled, the winter balm against the raw edges Elias had reopened. He texted his sister, Lena, back in Greenwich, "Another one bites the dust. Dinner soon?" Her reply pinged instant, "Proud of you, Artie. But you sound haunted. Spill." He pocketed the phone, hailing a livery cab back to the office, the Brooklyn streets a blur of bodegas and brownstones under a sky threatening more rain. That evening, Arthur met Theo at a dimly lit tappers bar in Cobble Hill, the kind with exposed brick and fairy lights strung like hesitant confessions. Theo was all easy charm, tousled blonde hair, a graphic tee under his denim jacket, and a laugh that bubbled up from his belly like good ale. They'd met 3 months back at a poetry slam in Dumbo, Arthur dragged there by Lena, and Theo had recited a piece on urban solitude that had Arthur buying drinks afterward. "You're intense," Theo had said then, tracing Arthur's knuckles with a fingertip. "I like intense." Tonight, over patatas bravas and sangria that stained their lips red, Theo leaned in, his knee brushing Arthur's under the table. "Rough day?" he asked, reading the tension in Arthur's shoulders like braille. Arthur hesitated, the words clotting in his throat. How to explain the ghost from law school, the one who'd once made him question if rivalry was just desire in disguise? "Old case resurfacing," he lied, sipping his wine. Theo nodded, accepting it with the grace of someone who'd learned not to pry too deep, and launched into a story about his barista shift, the drag queen who'd tipped in glitter and wisdom. Arthur laughed, genuine for a moment, letting the normalcy anchor him. They walked back to Theo's place hand in hand, the night air crisp with fallen leaves crunching underfoot, and in the soft tangle of Theo's sheets, Arthur lost himself in the rhythm of skin on skin, chasing oblivion. But dawn brought clarity's cruel light, Theo snoring softly beside him, and Arthur's phone lit up on the nightstand, another text from Elias. "Deleted? Coward. Meet me at the High Line, noon. We need to talk." Arthur stared at the screen, thumb tracing the curve of the words, the pull inexorable. He slipped out before Theo woke, leaving a note, "Work emergency. Coffee soon." And caught the train uptown, the Hudson River glittering mockingly through the windows. The High Line at midday was a ribbon of green snaking through Chelsea's galleries and lofts, tourists snapping pics amid wild grasses and rusted rails reclaimed by nature. Elias waited on a bench near the 23rd Street entrance, legs stretched out, a paper cup of coffee steaming in his hands. He looked up as Arthur approached, that gaze again, piercing, unyielding, like it could unravel secrets from bone. "You came," Elias said, no triumph, just quiet surprise. "Against my better judgment." Arthur sat, keeping space between them, the bench's iron slats cold through his chinos. Below, taxis crawled like ants on 10th Avenue, the city a distant roar. Elias set his cup down, turning to face him fully. "I saw your name on a pro bono list last month, some class action against the DOE. Figured you'd end up slinging David against Goliaths." There was admiration in his tone, grudging but real, and it warmed Arthur despite himself. "Someone has to." Arthur's voice edged sharp. "Not all of us chase billable hours and corner offices." Elias winced, the barb landing. "Fair. But that's not why I'm here." He paused, rubbing the back of his neck, a gesture Arthur remembered from exam crunches, when the golden boy showed cracks. "My firm's handling a merger, big pharma, ugly antitrust angles. I need a consult. Off the books. You're the best torts mind I know." Arthur barked a laugh. "Me? Consult for you? After you tanked my shot at that clerkship by accidentally forwarding my memo to the prof with your edits." The memory surged, second year, the federal clerkship interview looming, Arthur's brief on qualified immunity airtight until Elias's suggestions turned it into a Frankenstein's monster, earning a polite rejection email that still stung. Elias's face shadowed. "I was scared, Arthur. Scared you'd eclipse me, take everything, the honors, the respect, the whatever this was." His hand gestured vaguely between them, the air thickening. "This?" Arthur echoed, heart slamming. The high lines paths curved away like veins, joggers pounding past, oblivious. "You know what I mean." Elias's voice dropped, intimate. "The way you'd argue back, eyes flashing, like you saw right through me. It wasn't hate." "Not all of it." Arthur stood, the bench creaking protest. "Don't. You don't get to rewrite it now." But his feet stayed rooted, the truth coiling like smoke, those late nights in the library, knees brushing under the table, Elias's foot lingering against his calf once, twice, until Arthur jerked away, pulse roaring. The denial had been mutual, a fragile pact in a school where queerness was whispered, not shouted. Elias rose too, close enough that Arthur caught the faint salt of his skin. "Then let's write a new chapter. Dinner. My treat. Neutral ground, Katz's Deli. Tomorrow, 7. Arthur's resolve frayed, the city's pulse sinking with his own erratic beat. "Why now?" he whispered, the question a confession. "Because every time I close a deal, I see your face in the boardroom, the one you made during that oral argument on mens rea, when you quoted Dworkin like poetry. You haunt me, hail." Elias's eyes, green as low-country creeks, held steady, vulnerable. Arthur turned away, the wildflowers nodding in the breeze like conspirators. "Fine. One dinner. Closure." But as he walked the length of the High Line alone, the sun dipping toward the Hudson in a blaze of orange, he knew it was anything but. Closure was for files stamped paid, this was a subpoena, demanding he appear, testify to the heart he'd locked away. Back in Brooklyn that night, Theo's texts piled up, "Missed you this morning. Everything okay?" And guilt twisted like a knife. Arthur replied with apologies and excuses, then dove into Elias's proposed merger docs, emailed in a PDF that arrived unbidden. The antitrust knots were elegant, vicious, and as he annotated in the margins, red pen slashing like old wounds, he felt the pull sharpen, not just rivalry, but resonance, two minds attuned in the language of law and longing. Sleep evaded him again, the ceiling fan whirring accusations. By morning, as he prepped for a client intake, a domestic violence survivor named Riley from Crown Heights, her bruises hidden under long sleeves, Arthur's reflection in the bathroom mirror showed hollows under his eyes, a man teetering on the edge of surrender. The day blurred, depositions, coffee runs, a quick lunch of falafel from the truck on Nostrand. But under it all, anticipation simmered, a forbidden heat. Katz's at 7 was pandemonium, pastrami tickets shouted, lines snaking past the soul food counter, the air thick with mustard and nostalgia. Elias was already there, at a corner table under the signed baseball bats, his coat draped over the chair back. He stood when Arthur entered, that half-smile flickering. "You clean up nice, counselor." Arthur slid into the seat, the vinyl booth sticking to his slacks. "Flattery won't get you a better deal." But his voice softened, the banter a bridge over chasms. They ordered, pastrami on rye for Elias, corned beef for Arthur, rye whiskies to Chase, and the conversation flowed like contraband, shop talk first, safe terrain, dissecting the Supreme Court's latest on standing, Elias's drawl wrapping around legalese like kudzu. Then, inevitably, the past crept in. "Remember the beach trip?" Elias asked, eyes on his plate. Third-year spring break, the class decamped to the Hamptons, bonfires, and beer pong on the dunes. Arthur nodded, the memory vivid, salt wind whipping, Elias stripping to board shorts that clung like sin, his laugh carrying over the waves as they raced into the surf. Later, around the fire, shoulders touching, Elias's whisper, "What if we weren't enemies?" Drowned by the group's roar. Arthur had fled to his sleeping bag, heart a riot. "I remember," he said now, voice thick. The whiskey burned going down. Elias reached across, fingers grazing Arthur's wrist. "I chickened out. My dad called that night, 'Don't let distractions ruin you, son.' He meant you." The confession hung raw as an open brief. Arthur pulled back, but not far. "And I let you. Because it was easier to hate." The admission cracked something loose, tears pricking unexpected. The check came, Elias insisting, and outside, the Lower East Side pulsed with neon and night owls. They walked aimlessly, shoulders brushing, until Elias halted under a street lamp's glow. "This doesn't have to end here." Arthur met his gaze, the city fading to static. "What if it breaks us again?" "Then we rebuild." Elias stepped closer, breath mingling, and Arthur didn't retreat. Their lips met tentative, then fierce, a kiss tasting of pastrami and possibility, for years dissolving in the press of mouths. Arthur's hands fisted in Elias's shirt, pulling him nearer, the world narrowing to heartbeat and heat. They broke apart gasping, foreheads touching. "Your place," Elias murmured. Arthur nodded, hailing a cab, the ride a blur of tangled fingers and stolen kisses. In Elias's Soho loft, minimalist chic, bookshelves groaning with treatises and first editions, the night unfolded in whispers and urgency, shirts shed, skin mapped like uncharted case law, Elias's murmurs, "I've wanted this since contracts," echoing Arthur's own buried truths. Dawn found them entwined, sheets twisted, Elias's arm heavy across Arthur's waist. For the first time in years, Arthur slept without ghosts, the city's hum a lullaby. But as coffee brewed and sunlight slanted through blinds, a knock echoed, Elias's assistant, dropping merger files, and reality intruded, sharp as a docket call. Elias's loft in Soho was a study in controlled chaos, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the cast-iron facades of Prince Street, a kitchen island scarred from midnight brainstorming sessions, and a king bed that now bore the imprint of their reckless night like evidence in a lover's trial. Arthur woke to the scent of dark roast and Elias humming an old Springsteen tune under his breath, shirtless in low-slung sweats, flipping eggs with the focus of a man arguing certiorari. "Morning, counselor," Elias said, sliding a plate over, his grin boyish, unguarded. "Fuel for the fire." Arthur sat up, sheets pooling at his waist, the vulnerability of naked skin in daylight hitting like a cold splash. Last night had been a dam breaking, hands exploring scars and freckles, Elias's teeth grazing his collarbone, gasps swallowed in the dark, but morning demanded reckoning. "This. Us," Arthur started, fork hovering over runny yolks. "It's not simple." Elias perched on the bed's edge, thigh warm against Arthur's. "Nothing worth it is." He leaned in, kissing Arthur's temple, soft as a plea. "One day at a time. Like building a case." They ate cross-legged on the duvet, knees knocking, trading stories over coffee that scalded just right, Elias's childhood summers crabbing off Folly Beach, the way his mother's gospel records drowned out his father's fire and brimstone rants, Arthur's Connecticut winters ice skating on frozen ponds, Lena teaching him to fall without breaking. Laughter came easy, a bridge spanning the chasm, and for hours, they lingered, lazy kisses evolving into slower, deeper ones, bodies rediscovering rhythms postponed too long. But the world outside didn't pause for reconciliations. Arthur's phone buzzed mid-morning, Maria, frantic. Riley's ex showed up at the shelter. "We need you for a restraining order, stat." Duty pulled like gravity, and Arthur dressed in borrowed clothes, a too-big Henley that smelled of Elias's cedar cologne, stealing one last kiss at the door. "Tonight?" Elias asked, hand lingering on Arthur's hip. "Text me." Arthur descended the spiral stairs, the loft's echo mocking his resolve. The subway ride to Crown Heights was a gauntlet of stairs and second-guessing, the F-train sway mirroring his unease. What were they doing? Elias, with his high-stakes deals and Charleston pedigree, and Arthur, knee-deep in the borough's underbelly, could bridges like theirs hold? The shelter on St. Mark's Place was a squat brownstone with bars on the windows and murals of empowered fists adorning the stoop. Riley waited inside, 32 and fierce-eyed, her dark curls pinned back, a fresh split lip blooming purple. "He found me," she whispered, clutching a mug of chamomile like a shield. "Said he'd kill us both if I don't come back." Arthur's advocate mode snapped on, the lawyer's armor fitting snug. He spent the afternoon in a windowless conference room, drafting the TRO with Riley's details, the ex's history of control, the threats logged in a spiral notebook, the daughter's wide-eyed terror at 4. By 4 p.m., they filed at the courthouse, the clerk stamp a small victory amid the marble hall's indifference. Riley hugged him after, fierce and fleeting. "You're a warrior, Mr. Hale." Back at the office, the bullpen buzzed, a stack of intakes waiting, Javier's follow-up docs needing review. Arthur buried himself in work, the monotony a mercy, but Elias's text arrived at 6:15, Italian in the village? 8. And temptation one. He replied yes, then called Theo on the walk to the station, guilt a lead weight. "Hey, stranger," Theo answered, voice light but laced with hurt. "Emergency over." "Yeah, just swamped." Arthur hated the evasion, the way it corroded. "Rain check on that hike." Theo paused, the subway's roar filling the silence. "Sure. Take care, Art." The call ended, and Arthur pocketed his phone, the click final as a gavel. Carmine's in the West Village was a red-sauced haven, checkered cloths and candlelight flickering over plates of veal parm and tiramisu. Elias was already there, nursing a Chianti, his tie loosened like an invitation. "You look wrecked," he observed, pulling out Arthur's chair. "Good wrecked. Rough clients." Arthur dove into the bread basket, the carb crunch grounding him. Over appetizers, Elias shared merger war stories, rival counsels bluff called in a deposition, the thrill of outmaneuvering, and Arthur found himself leaning in, the intellectual spar safe again, electric. But as mains arrived, steam rising like unspoken fears, Elias's fork paused. "My dad's in town. Dinner tomorrow. He wants to meet. Whoever's making me smile like an idiot." Arthur's appetite fled. "Your dad? The one who quoted Leviticus at your coming out?" Elias had confessed it once, drunk on gin fizzes at a law school rager, the elder Cain's ultimatum, pray it away or lose the family firm. Elias's jaw tightened. His mellowed. "Swear. Come as my consultant." Plausible deniability. The request hung, a test. Arthur imagined the low-country drawl turning venomous, the judgment in those preachers' eyes. "I can't." "Not yet." His voice cracked, and Elias's hand covered his across the table, thumb stroking knuckles. "Fair. But don't hide forever." They finished in charged quiet, the walk to Elias's a magnetic pull, ending in his loft with doors barely closed before clothes hit the floor. This time, it was slower, Elias mapping Arthur's ribs with lips and tongue, Arthur's fingers threading through those dark curls, pulling just hard enough to elicit gasps. Stay, Elias murmured against his throat, bodies aligning in the dim glow of city lights. Arthur stayed, dawn creeping in like a thief, but sleep brought dreams, law school corridors twisting into marshes, Elias's hand slipping from his, a door slamming on accusations. He woke sweating, Elias's armor anchor, and slipped out before the man stirred, leaving a note, early hearing. Call you. The week blurred into a dangerous rhythm, stolen lunches at Le Pain Quotidien, where they dissect op-eds over croissants, evenings tangled in sheets, Elias's laugh vibrating against Arthur's chest, texts that pinged like heartbeats, miss your voice already. Arthur's work suffered subtle sabotage, memos half-written, eyes glazing during client meets, and Theo faded to polite distance, their last coffee ending in awkward hugs. If you need to talk, Theo said, I'm here. But Arthur couldn't, the secret a stone in his gut. Then, the conflict ignited. Friday, Arthur's inbox lit up, an email from his supervisor, CCing the whole team, subject urgent, conflict check. Inside, a client referral, pro bono for a whistleblower in Elias's pharma merger, alleging kickbacks that could tank the deal. Arthur's stomach plummeted, the whistleblower was Riley's cousin, a lab tech from the same Bronx network. Elias's firm represented the acquiring company, ironclad NDAs and all. He called Elias immediate, voice low in the office bathroom stall. This can't touch us. Elias's reply crackled, tense. It won't. Recuse if you have to. But don't bail now. Recusal meant explaining to his boss, the optics toxic, sleeping with opposing counsel. Arthur paced the tiled floor, mirror reflecting a man frayed at edges. He took the case, firewalls be damned, drafting the initial complaint with Riley's help over takeout in her cramped apartment, the kid asleep in the next room. That night, Elias waited at the loft, scotch in hand, face stormy. You could have said no. And lie to myself? This is who I am. Arthur's words lashed out, old wounds reopening. Elias slammed the glass down, amber sloshing. And who am I? The villain in your redemption arc. His eyes blazed, the room shrinking. You're the one who always chooses winning over right. The accusation flew, rooted in law school betrayals, the clerkship sabotage, the rumor that Arthur was unreliable, whispered to recruiters. Elias recoiled, color draining. That was fear, not malice. I protected myself because loving you terrified me. The L word landed like thunder, unspoken before, and Arthur froze, heart a staccato. You don't get to say that now. But Arthur stepped closer, fists clenched, the air electric with hurt. Elias closed the gap, hands framing Arthur's face. Then teach me how. Their kiss was bruising, desperate, teeth and tears, bodies crashing like waves on rock. They made up in fury, sheets ripping, nails scoring backs, release a temporary truce. But dawn brought the fracture. Elias's phone rang, his father, early from Charleston. Son, the merger's heating up. That whistleblower's a hack, bury it. Elias hung up, expression hardening, and Arthur saw the divide yawn, family legacy versus fragile truth. I have to go in, Elias said, dressing swift. Strategy session. Arthur nodded, pulling on jeans. I'll handle my end clean. At the door, Elias paused, thumb brushing Arthur's lip. We can navigate this. But as Arthur rode the train home, the L train rattling through tunnels like veins, doubt festered. Betrayal loomed, not in actions yet, but in the pool of worlds colliding. That afternoon, in a deposition suite downtown, Arthur cross-examined a pharma exec, his questions sharp as scalpels, but his mind wandered to Elias's profile in the merger files, ruthless, brilliant, the enemy he'd fallen for anew. Evening found him at Lena's in Park Slope, her brownstone a haven of exposed beams and kid chaos, her twins, Mia and Theo Jr., tumbling with blocks while she poured Pinot. You look like hell, bro, she said, clinking glasses. Lena, ever the therapist in mufti, coaxed out fragments, the case overlap, the reignited flame. Enemies to lovers? Classic. But if he burns you again? He won't. Arthur's conviction wavered, the the wine loosening tongues. They talk till midnight, her head on his shoulder, the twin snores a soft counterpoint. You're enough, Art. Remember that. Sleep came merciful that night, but Saturday brought the storm. Elias texted, "Dinner with Dad tonight. Come. Please." Arthur agonized, then agreed, armor up, heart exposed. The restaurant was upscale midtown, linen and crystal, the elder cane a silver fox in seersucker, Bible quotes slipping into small talk like barbs. "Elias speaks highly of you, Arthur. Columbia man, eh? Fine stock." The praise curdled under scrutiny, the man's eyes probing, as if scenting sin. Over filet mignon, merger talk dominated, the whistleblower dismissed as an agitator trash. Arthur's jaw clenched, Riley's face flashing, her cousin's job on the line, lives in balance. When Mr. Kane leaned in, "Loyalty's everything, son." "Family, firm," Elias shifted, foot nudging Arthur's under the table, a silent apology. But the knife fell post-dessert, in the valet line. Mr. Kane clapped Elias's shoulder. "Proud of you, boy. Keeping it clean, no distractions this time." His gaze flicked to Arthur, loaded, and Elias stiffened, the silence damning. In the cab home, Arthur erupted. "He knows. And you let him." Elias's face crumpled. "I didn't." "You did nothing." Tears hot, Arthur directed the driver to Brooklyn, the ride a chasm. At his door, Elias begged, "Don't end this." But Arthur slammed it shut, the lock clicking like perjury. Alone, he slid down the wall, sobs racking, the heart he'd risked now in shards. Enemies again, but this time, the wound was love's betrayal, deeper than law could litigate. The days after the dinner blurred into a grey haze, Brooklyn's autumn leaves carpeting the sidewalks like discarded briefs, each crunch under Arthur's boots a reminder of footsteps he'd never take again. He threw himself into the whistleblower case with monastic fervor, the complaint evolving into a beast of motions and subpoenas. Riley's cousin, Marcus, a soft-spoken biochemist with wire rims and a stutter under stress, becoming a fixture in his office. "They threatened my green card," Marcus confessed one rainy afternoon, rain lashing the windows like accusations. Arthur nodded, jotting notes, his empathy a shield against the void Elias had left. Texts from Elias piled up, unread. "Talk to me. I messed up. Please." Arthur deleted them in batches, the swipe a small exorcism, but nights brought relapse, scrolling old photos, a candid from the Hamptons trip, Elias mid-laugh, sun-kissed and carefree. He'd pour bourbon till the burn dulled the ache, then crash into dreams where green eyes pleaded, hands reached, only to dissolve into courtroom gavels pounding verdict. Work became salvation and scourge. The merger hit headlines, pharma giant I swallow up, Wall Street Journal trumpeting Elias's firm as architects, and Arthur's team buzzed with schadenfreude, unaware of his stake. "Those sharks get what's coming," Maria crowed over vending machine chips, her gold hoops swinging. Arthur forced a smile, but inside, loyalty ward, protect Marcus, or shield the man whose touch still ghosted his skin. Theo re-emerged midweek, a text out of the blue, "Coffee?" "No pressure." Guilt propelled Arthur to the cafe on Atlantic, where Theo waited with lattes and no expectations. "You vanished," Theo said gently, foam mustache quirking his lip. "Someone new." Arthur confessed fragments, the law school rival, the reignition, the crash. Theo listened, eyes kind, then squeezed his hand. "Hearts are messy, Art. But you're not alone." They parted with a hug that lingered, platonic but warm, a lifeline in the storm. Lena called that night, voice sharp over speakerphone as Arthur chopped onions for a solo stir-fry. "You're isolating. Bad sign." She demanded details, the dinner debacle spilling out in sobs. "That man's poison," she declared. "Cut the vein." But arteries ran deep. Saturday, Arthur caved to a weak moment, driving to Red Hook for air, the waterfront warehouses brooding under slate skies. He wandered the piers, gulls wheeling, when his phone rang, unknown, but the area code Charleston. Heart seizing, he answered. "Arthur Hale?" Reverend Elias Kane Sr. The voice was polished gravel, Sunday sermon smooth. We need to talk. Arthur's grip whitened. About? My son. He's unraveling, misses work, stares at walls. Says it's you. A pause, heavy as judgment. Meet me. Magnolias on Broad, tomorrow. Noon. The invitation, or ultimatum, reverberated. Arthur hung up, the wind whipping salt spray, and drove home in turmoil. Sleep evaded, the ceiling a courtroom where he cross-examined himself, go, for closure, stay, for sanity. Sunday dawned crisp, the BQE a snarl of traffic to JFK, then the flight south a blur of peanuts and regret. Charleston greeted him with humid embrace, palmettos lining the runway like sentinels, the air thick with jasmine and history. A rental Chevy took him to the historic district, Battery mansions gazing seaward, their verandas ghosts of antebellum grace. Magnolias was a tea-room relic, lace doilies and sweet tea in silver pitchers, the Reverend waiting at a corner table, seersucker crisp, Bible tucked beside his menu like a co-counsel. He rose, handshake firm, eyes, Elias's eyes, but steelier, assessing. Glad you came, son. They ordered, shrimp and grits for the Reverend, biscuits for Arthur, and the interrogation began polite. Elias was always headstrong. Like his mother. A softening, fleeting. She passed young, cancer. Left me to raise him alone. Arthur nodded, fork spearing a shrimp, the buttery bite cloying. He's brilliant. Brilliant and broken. The Reverend leaned in, voice dropping. He told me about you. The feelings. The word twisted, distaste veiled. I reacted poorly. Scripture's clear, but love's murkier. Arthur's pulse thrummed. You hurt him. Us. Guilt's a heavy chain. The man sighed, tracing his glasses condensation. I pushed the firm, the merger's legacy, you see. But seeing him now, hollow. It's penance. He met Arthur's gaze, raw. Fix him. Or let him go clean. The words landed like a settlement offer, terms ambiguous. Arthur left the cafe dazed, the Battery's cannon silent witnesses, and checked into a King Street B&B, whites and wicker, a four-poster that smelled of lavender. His phone buzzed, Elias, where are you? Arthur typed, deleted, typed, Charleston. Talking to your dad. The reply instant, what? Why? To end this right. Arthur pocketed the phone, wandering the market stalls, pralines and sweetgrass baskets a sensory overload. By dusk, he found himself at White Point Garden, oaks draped in resurrection fern, the harbor a silver sheet. Elias appeared like apparition, coat flapping, face a map of worry. You flew here. Elias's voice cracked, pulling Arthur into a fierce hug, the embrace public but unheeding. Idiot. Your dad called. Arthur pulled back, searching those green depths. He wants you whole. Elias's laugh was bitter. His version. They sat on a bench, knees touching, the oaks whispering overhead. I told him everything, after the dinner. Came out swinging. Arthur's breath hitched. And? Disownment threats. Then tears. First time I saw him cry since Mom. Elias's hand found Arthur's, interlacing fingers. I choose you. Over legacy, over fear. The confession unlocked something primal. Arthur kissed him there, under the live oaks, salt-tang air mingling with desire, hands fisting wall. They stumbled to a cab, Elias's apartment a quick dash up Meeting Street, a garden flat with courtyard palms and books in stacks, the bed a tangle of urgency. Post-climax, sweat cooled, Elias traced Arthur's spine. Stay the week. Merger wraps Tuesday, then we figure us. Arthur murmured assent, lulled by heartbeat, but dawn brought the call, Maria, urgent. Marcus got a threat, email, anonymous. Drop it or else. Panic surged, Arthur booked the next flight, Elias driving him to the airport, their goodbye a stolen kiss in the terminal's throng. Back in Brooklyn, the threat escalated the case, FBI looped in, protective order for Marcus, media sniffing. Arthur's days became war rooms, strategy sessions in conference calls, Riley pacing his office with coffee runs. Nights, Elias's calls bridged the miles, voice husky with longing, wish you here, morphing into phone-tethered intimacies, breath synced across wires. But the betrayal brewed subtle. Wednesday, a leaked memo hit Arthur's desk, internal pharma email, redacted but damning, hinting at Elias's firm coaching witnesses to perjure. Arthur's blood iced, he confronted Elias that night, video call flickering. "Is this you?" He held up the scan, voice steel. Elias blanched. "No, God, no. It's the client. They're rogue." Desperation etched his face. "Trust me." "Trust." Arthur's laugh hollowed. "Like the clerkship?" Silence stretched, lethal. "I earned that shot," Elias whispered. "But this? I'd burn the firm for you." The call ended unresolved, Arthur slamming his laptop, the screen's glow mocking. He walked the streets till 3 a.m., Williamsburg bridge lights a distant blaze, the East River churning secrets. Thursday's deposition was carnage, the exec from before, now sweating under Arthur's barrage, cracking on kickback details. Victory tasted ash, Elias's plea echoing. That evening, Theo appeared at his door, pizza in hand, eyes concerned. "Lena sent me. You ghosted everyone." They ate on the fire escape, city sprawl below, Theo's shoulder a steady lean. "Fight for him," Theo advised. "Or fight free." The words crystallized, Arthur booked a red-eye Friday, landing in Charleston as storm clouds gathered. Elias met him at the gate, embrace desperate. "I pulled the files. See for yourself, I'm clean." They poured over docs in the flat, takeout forgotten, Elias's annotations proving distance from the dirt. Relief flooded, but Arthur's voice trembled. No more secrets. None. Elias sealed it with a vow kiss, slow and sealing. The weekend was idle, low country drives to Botany Bay, beaches unspoiled, hands linked over gishift, oyster roasts with Elias's reluctant aunt, her rye acceptance thawing ice, nights in the courtyard, stars pricking velvet, bodies worshipful. But Monday's merger close loomed, Elias jetting to New York for the signing. "Join me," he urged at departure. "Witness the end." Arthur hesitated, case demands, but relented, the flight a promise. LaGuardia reunion, Elias in victory suit, grin triumphant, pulling Arthur into a JFK-style dipkiss amid baggage claim chaos. The signing was anticlimax, boardroom handshakes, champagne toasts, Arthur observing from the sidelines, a consultant ghost. But post-deal, in a Soho bar's back booth, Elias slid a velvet box across, not ring, but a key, engraved ours. Move in. Brooklyn, Soho, wherever. Us. Tears pricked, Arthur pocketed it, heart soaring. Yes. That night, in the loft, celebration turned carnal, champagne spills licked from navels, laughter echoing off beams. But as they drifted to sleep, Arthur's phone lit, anonymous text, his lying. Check the addendum. Attached, a scan merger clause burying the whistleblower claims, Elias's signature bold. Betrayal's blade twisted deep. Arthur slipped from bed, dressing silent, the key burning his palm. Dawn cab to Brooklyn, tears blurring boroughs, the heart he'd mended shattering anew. Elias's calls went to voicemail, please ignored. At home, Arthur curled fetal, sobs seismic, the enemy within roaring, love was the cruelest verdict. The anonymous text became Arthur's rosary, thumbed over in the dim of his Brooklyn bedroom, the scan's pixels searing like acid. Elias's signature, bold, looping E, on the addendum clause, all ancillary claims, including whistleblower allegations, deemed resolved via settlement, non-disclosable. It wasn't just legalese, it was a gag order on Marcus's truth, silencing the man who'd trusted Arthur to amplify his voice. Betrayal wasn't abstract now, it had ink and initials, Elias's hand guiding the knife. He didn't confront immediately. Instead, Arthur weaponized the hurt, channeling it into the case like fuel for a bonfire. Tuesday's strategy huddle with the team was a masterclass in controlled fury. He dissected the addendum, looping in the FBI contact, a no-nonsense agent named Torres from the Southern District, her Brooklyn accent clipping words like wire cutters. "This smells like obstruction," Torres said over lukewarm conference room coffee, her notepad filling with Arthur's arrows. Marcus arrived mid-meeting, eyes hollow from sleepless threat vigils, and Arthur clasped his shoulder. "We're not dropping this. Ever." Riley tagged along, her presence a talisman, brewing tea in the corner like a ritual. "Elias," she asked later, as they walked to the courthouse for the TRO extension, her intuition sharp as a deposition hook. Arthur's step faltered on the Fulton Street steps. "It's complicated." But the lie crumbled under her gaze, and over courthouse vending machine cokes, he spilled the reconciliation, the key, the clause. Riley's hug was fierce, maternal. "Men like him, shiny on top, rot below. You deserve sunlight." Her words echoed as Arthur filed the amended complaint, citing the addendum as evidence of collusion. The judge, a stern woman named Patel with a penchant for pro bono fire, a narrow continuance granting discovery. Victory small, but it armored him. The courtrooms echo a vow, fight until the system bent. Elias's voicemails mounted, each a plea wrapped in panic. "Arthur, it's not what it looks, call me." Then texts, timestamps ticking like bombs, photos of the loft empty, his face gaunt in selfie mirror. Arthur archived them, a digital mausoleum, and threw himself into routine, morning runs along Ocean Parkway, where the wind off Gravesend Bay whipped resolve, client intakes till eyes blurred, evenings at Lena's, where the twins' chaos drowned sorrow, Mia's sticky fingers in his hair a reminder of innocence unbetrayed. Theo became unwitting confessor, their coffees evolving to walks in Prospect Park, leaves flaming russet underfoot. "Dump the baggage," Theo urged one crisp afternoon, tossing a frisbee to a stray pup they'd befriended. "You're too good for shadows." Arthur nodded, but the key, tossed in a drawer, not discarded, whispered otherwise, a talisman of what IFS. Midweek fracture, a knock at midnight, Arthur's doorframe filled with Elias, disheveled in trench and stubble, eyes wild. "Let me explain." Rain dripped from his hair, pooling on the welcome mat like tears. Arthur blocked the threshold, arms crossed. "Explain the gag on a man's life? For a deal?" Elias's hand shot out, gripping the jam. It was boilerplate, client insisted. "I fought it, swear. Resigned yesterday." The words detonated, Arthur's breath catching. "Resigned." Echoing, disbelieving. "Walked out mid-toast. Told the partners you're my priority." Elias stepped closer, scent of wet wool and desperation. "Check the filing, my affidavit, recanting." Arthur's phone was in hand before logic caught up, Torres's line ringing. She confirmed, voice grudging admiration, "Your boy's flipping. Gave us the keys to the kingdom." Relief warred with rage, Arthur hauling Elias inside, door slamming like thunder. "You idiot. For what?" "Me. For us." Elias's kiss was salt and storm, Arthur yielding despite fury, the argument dissolving into grappling, shirts yanked, bodies slamming walls, release a catharsis of bites and bruises. They collapsed on the couch, breaths ragged, Elias's head on Arthur's chest. "I choose you. Every time." But trust was a fracture, mending slow. They navigated tentative, breakfasts of burnt toast and halting talks, Elias crashing on the futon, his severance check unspent, job hunting in pro bono circles, litigation support at a non-profit, he announced Friday, grin tentative. Arthur thawed incremental, walks hand in hidden hand along the promenade, where the Manhattan skyline taunted with memories. The case climaxed that weekend, a hearing in federal court, Southern District, where Torres presented the evidence chain, threat emails traced to a farmer burner, Elias's docs the linchpin. The judge, a grizzled vet named Kowalski, hammered the gavel, injunction granted, merger halted pending investigation, Marcus's claims unsealed. Arthur's team erupted in the hallway hug pile, Riley lifting Marcus like a trophy, tears communal. Elias waited outside, anonymous in the crowd, his nod to Arthur a quiet triumph. That night, celebration at a Bedstewy soul food joint, collards and cornbread, beers clinking, Elias at the bar, buying rounds for strangers, his laugh reclaiming space. Arthur watched, heart swelling, the key resurfacing from the drawer, slipped into Elias's palm under the table. Not yet, Arthur whispered. But soon. Healing's path wound treacherous. Elias's father called Sunday, voice contrite over brunch mimosas, heard about the resignation. Proud, son. And Arthur. Welcome, if you'll have it. The olive branch tentative, but Arthur gripped it, the Reverend's low country lilt softening edges. Theo bowed out graceful, a final coffee sealing friendship, happiness suits you. Arthur hugged him fierce, gratitude a bridge preserved. But crisis crested unbidden, Elias's ex, a litigator named Devon from Charleston days, surfaced via email, cease it to Arthur, venomous. He's using you, like me. Check the psych evil, bipolar, off meds. Attached, a redacted report, Elias's history laid bare, manic episodes in college, depressions that swallowed semesters, the law school intensity a mask for chaos. Arthur confronted gentle, over takeout low mine on the fire escape, city lights winking complicit. Why hide it? Elias's fork stilled, eyes downcast. Shame. Dads pray it away the gospel. But I'm stable, our meds now, therapy. Vulnerability cracked him open, and Arthur pulled him close, whispers of we'll face it a new pact. The emotional nadir hit mid-month, a depressive dip for Elias, triggered by job rejections, curling him inward, days in sweats, meals skipped, Arthur's touches rebuffed. Arthur's own doubts flared, am I enough, nights pacing the kitchen, Lena's texts a lifeline, hold space, not force. He cooked, Elias's low country favorites, shrimp etouffee simmering, sat silent beside him on the couch, hand offered but not pressed. Breakthrough came slow, a rainy Tuesday, Elias emerging hollow-eyed. I'm scared you'll leave. Scared too. Arthur knelt, forehead to knee. But we're in the appeal. Therapy joined their arsenal, couple sessions with a Park Slope sage named Dr. Ruiz, her office ferns and frankness peeling layers. Conflicts your foreplay, she noted dryly, homework, daily gratitudes, shared journals. Progress incremental, Elias's meds adjusted, Arthur's work boundaries set, no more all-nighters bleeding into burnout. Winter crept in, first snow dusting brownstones like confectioner's sugar, their rhythm solidifying. Christmas Eve, Elias strung lights on the fire escape, Arthur's hand in his, the city a hush of bells and bustle. To new briefs, Elias toasted with eggnog, kiss-mulled and merry. But the journey's forge tested anew, Arthur's father, the corporate wolf, visited unannounced, midtown suit crisp, eyes appraising the loft-like flat they'd half-moved into, Elias's books mingling with Arthur's. Dinner at Lena's devolved, public defending? Waste of a JD, Victor Hale barked over turkey, ignoring Elias's polite deflections. Arthur erupted, fork clattering. Its purpose, Dad. Not your ledger. The table tensed, but Elias's hand under it steadied, his later whisper, you're fierce, the balm. Healing deepened in quiet, spring training runs, hands brushing at finish lines, Elias's first non-profit win, a tenant rights case, celebrated with rooftop picnics, Arthur's vulnerability shared, his own closet fears, the Greenwich teen years faking straight for country club nods. Yet the arc crested in summer swelter, a low-country wedding invite from Elias's cousin, neutral ground, family mending. They flew south, palms fanning humid air, the ceremony on a Kiowa dune, vows exchanged amid waves, Elias's aunt pulling Arthur aside. He lights for you. Tears pricked, later, on the beach, barefoot in surf, Elias proposed, not ring, but words, build a life. Brooklyn, Charleston, anywhere. Arthur's yes was a wave crash, embrace salty and sure. But the story's heartbeat in the return, New York heat wave, their flatter sanctuary of fans and fanships, Elias's hand on Arthur's belly as they cooked gumbo, laughter at burnt roux, nights tangled, whispers of futures, joint practice, maybe, or adjunct teaching, blending their fires. Crisis echoed faint now, betrayal scar a teacher, not tyrant. Arthur's reflection softened, thighs brighter, shoulders unbowed. Elias, med-compliant and marsh-rooted, bloomed steady. Together, they were verdict and appeal, enemies forged to lovers, hearts mended in the quiet forge of days. Summer in Brooklyn baked the asphalt into mirages, the air a thick soup of halal cart spices and distant thunder, but inside their shared flat on Pacific Street, Elias's boxes finally unpacked, his low-country quilts draping the bed like a truce flag, Arthur found a rhythm that felt perilously like peace. The key had multiplied, duplicates jangling on chains, doors opening without hesitation. Mornings began with espresso grounds grinding, Elias's bare feet padding across cool hardwood to kiss Arthur awake, murmurs of 5 more minutes dissolving into lazy tangles under sheets that smelled of salt and cedar. Work diverged but converged, Arthur's caseload swelled with summer surges, youth arrests spiking in the heat, kids like Javier's cousin snared in gang peripheries, while Elias dove into the non-profit's trenches, his antitrust savvy proposed for class actions against slumlords, evictions halted in Bronx walk-ups. Evenings overlapped in strategy swaps over takeout, Arthur's TRO templates refined by Elias's clause carving, a symbiosis that blurred professional lines into something intimate, charged. Yet the healing journey's undercurrent tugged persistent, old fractures aching in weather shifts. Elias's therapy notes, shared now as trust's currency, revealed shadows, a manic echo in late July, triggered by a cousin's wedding call, family pressures resurfacing, the Reverend's voice on speakerphone probing settling down proper. Elias had spiraled post-hang-up, pacing the flat till 2 a.m., Arthur trailing with chamomile and calm. It's the legacy ghost, Elias confessed, collapsed on the kitchen tile, Arthur's arms a cradle. Dad's version, wife, heirs, no deviations. Arthur stroked sweat-damp curls. Our legacy's here. He pressed Elias's palm to his chest, heartbeat a Morse code of enough. Dr. Ruiz unpacked it next session, her fern-fringed office a confessional, boundaries with blood, Elias. Write the letter unsent. That night, over rooftop wine, city skyline a jagged horizon, Elias drafted, words pouring like low-country rain, grievances aired, forgiveness tentative. Burning it in a coffee can, flames dancing orange, he exhaled. Free. Arthur's own crisis simmered subtler, a case gut punch, mid-August, a client named Devon, not the ex, coincidence cruel, acquitted on technicality, the abuser walking free while Devon's bruises faded to yellow ghosts. Arthur unraveled in the office bathroom, mirror fogged from stifled sobs, Maria finding him slumped. Go home, mijo. Heroes rest. Elias was there when he arrived, sensing fracture, drawing a bath with Epsom salts and eucalyptus, hands gentle on Arthur's back as water lapped. You can't save them all, he whispered, soaping shoulders. But you save enough. Intimacy rebuilt layered, not just bodies, though those nights burned fervent, Elias's mouth tracing hip bones till Arthur arched like a brief under scrutiny, but souls, vulnerabilities voiced in dark. Arthur admitted the fear, what if I'm the distraction that ruins you? Elias's laugh was soft, fingers interlacing. You're the plot twist that saves. Fall unfurled golden, leaves carpeting the park where they jogged, breath sinking in crisp air. The Reverend visited, his initiative, a weekend in the city, seersucker swapped for chinos, the Bible left home. Dinner at their flat was tentative choreography, Victor Hale absent, Lena hosting neutral in Park Slope, twins orbiting like satellites. Over lasagna, the elder Kane thawed incremental, questions on Arthur's caseload met with nods, Elias's non-profit wins drawing gruff well done. Post-meal walk, under street lamps gilding oaks, he pulled Elias aside, Arthur lingering, eavesdropping polite. He's good for you, son. Hold tight. The hug was awkward, backslap stiff, but real, a cornerstone laid. Betrayal's echo faded to whisper, the addendum scandal resolving in headlines, Farmer XX indicted, merger autopsy crediting anonymous sources, Elias among them, uncredited hero. Torres sent a bottle of Glenlivet, note clipped, OU1, counselor. Marcus thrived post-victory, a lab job in Jersey secured, his thank you dinner a boisterous affair at a Crown Heights Caribbean spot, jerk chicken and plantains, Riley toasting Arthur and Elias with rum punches. To allies, she said, eyes shining, and Arthur clinked, Elias's knee warm against his under the table. Winter's cusp brought the high Thanksgiving in Charleston, a family summit brokered by the Reverend's contrition. The Kane home, a white clapboard on the Ashley River, azaleas dormant, welcomed with oyster stew and heirloom silver. Elias's aunt, a widow with wit sharp as she crab soup, cornered Arthur in the kitchen. He was wild till you. Steady now. The meal unfolded without incident, prayers inclusive, toasts to chosen kin, and post-feast, on the veranda, Elias and Arthur swayed to Ella Fitzgerald Vinyl's river murmuring accompaniment. "This is us," Elias breathed, chin on shoulder. "Whole." But the ark's tension coiled in December's chill. Victor Hale's annual gala invite, a midtown black tie affair Arthur had dodged since law school. "Go," Elias urged over mulled cider in the flat, fairy lights twinkling. "Own your space." Arthur relented, suit tailored sharp, Elias as +1 in velvet blazer, drawl polished for schmoozers. The ballroom glittered, crystal chandeliers, string quartet soaring Vivaldi, Victor holding court, silver Manet gleaming. Introductions crackled. "Son, this is Elias Kane, your rival, I hear." Victor's wink masked probe, but Elias parried smooth, "Rival turned partner, sir." "Best decision." Arthur's chest swelled, hand finding Elias's in the crush, a anchor amid small talk on tax codes and tariffs. Dance floor called post-dinner, waltz under lights, Elias's lead confident, whispers in ear, "You shine." But Victor cornered later, scotch in fist, "He's a wild card, Arthur." "Sure." The doubt landed paternal, laced concern. Arthur met it square, "He's my certainty." Victor's nod was grudging, then softening, proud, then a dam breached. New Year's Eve sealed the mend, rooftop bash in Dumbo, Theo DJing vinyl spins, Lena's crew mingling with Elias's remote kin via FaceTime. Fireworks bloomed over the East River, Arthur and Elias on a blanket edge, countdown chanting. At 0, kiss deep, champagne fizzing on tongues. To appeals 1, Arthur toasted, Elias's grin luminous. Springs thaw mirrored in a joint case, a housing discrimination suit, their briefs entwining like vines, Arthur's narrative fire, Elias's procedural steel. Victory in court, tenants hugging tearful, cemented partnership whispers, firm someday? Hale and Kane. Laughter over victory beers, the dream tangible. Crisis's final echo, Elias's dip, spring allergy-triggered med flux, mania flickering in all-nighters drafting amicus briefs. Arthur caught early, racing thoughts confessed over dawn pancakes, guiding to Dr. Ruiz, holding through adjustment fog. "You're my north," Elias murmured post-stabilize, hands clasped in waiting room greens. Summer looped back, heat wave redux, but fortified, beach day at Coney, boardwalk cotton candy melting on fingers, Ferris wheel confessions, marry me proper. Elias asked, ring simple platinum, marsh sapphire inlay. Arthur's yes was whoop loud, strangers cheering below. The journey's core revealed in quiet aftermath, not grand gestures, but dailies, the bodega run for Elias's Gatorade during flu, Arthur's briefs proofed by dawnlight, Elias's coffee steaming beside, arguments over dishes dissolving to make up sex on counters, therapy check-ins, growth graft in shared journals. Betrayal transmuted to teacher, enemies forge yielding lovers steel. Arthur's heart, once breaking under gazes, now steadied in them, green eyes home. Humanistic grace, in flaws embraced, conflicts alchemized, the American dream not conquest, but connection, two men weaving laws loom into love's tapestry, unbreakable. Autumn's palette returned, Brooklyn's streets a mosaic of amber and rust, the air crisp with promise as Arthur and Elias navigated the threshold of forever. The proposal ring caught light in mundane miracles, slipping it on over morning coffee, Elias's thumb tracing the band like a vow renewed, flashing it in court hallways, Maria's whoop echoing off tiles. Wedding plans unfolded unhurried, a small affair in Charleston come spring, dunes, and family, Victor and the Reverend co-officiating in a nod to blended blood. Hail Cain, Elias mused one leaf-strewn evening, carving pumpkins on the fire escape, knife steady. Sounds like a firm already. Laughter bubbled, easy now, the kind forged in fires banked. Arthur's caseload hummed steady, a new initiative, youth mentorships pairing law students with at-risk teens, his Columbia ties lending guest lectures that drew crowds. Elias thrived at the nonprofit, his antitrust scalpel carving paths for immigrant entrepreneurs, a recent win evicting a predatory lender from Queens tenement celebrated with rooftop toasts, Theo spinning tracks till stars wheeled. Yet the narrative's depth plumbed in unguarded depths, a November nor'easter trapping them indoors, power flickering, Elias's mania whispering at edges, insomnia pacing, ideas tumbling unchecked. Arthur rose unprompted, brewing chamomile by candlelight, guiding him to the couch with a blanket fort of quilts. "Breathe with me," he said, hand on chest, rhythm sinking till calm reclaimed. Dawn brought confession, fear the loss of control, losing you to it. Arthur's reply was anchor, control's illusion. "We're the constant." Dr. Ruiz affirmed in session, her office now familiar as kin, resilience in reciprocity. Homework evolved, weekly what-if journals, worst fears voiced to defang Elias's abandonment relapse, Arthur's insufficiency echo. Pages filled, burned or kept, trust's ledger balanced. Family weaves tightened, Christmas in Greenwich, Victor's estate aglow with evergreens, Lena's twins shrieking carols. The patriarch pulled Arthur aside by the fire, brandy sniffed a warm, "I was wrong, your path's truer than mine." Embrace gruff, but healing, Elias witnessing with wet eyes. New Year's echoed in low country, Reverend Cain's parsonage strung with magnolia, his sermon, delivered guest pulpit, on love's boundless covenant, gaze lingering proud on the couple in third pew. Spring burgeoned, wedding eve a hush of azaleas blooming battericide, rehearsal dinner oyster-laden, toasts laced laughter and law, Theo's ribbing on lawyer lovebirds, Riley's verse on redemption arcs. Arthur stood veranda overlooking, Elias beside, river twilight silver. "Nervous?" Elias asked, fingers interlaced. "Terrified." Arthur's honesty bare. "What if we falter?" Elias turned, eyes green sea steady. "We have." "And risen." Kiss soft, ceiling. Ceremony dawn June-kissed, guest sparse, Lena's brood, Maria and Torres, Marcus with Riley's family, Devon the ex-even, olive branch extended awkward but earnest. Vows handwritten, Arthur's you saw my fight, joined it, my partner in every plea, Elias's from rivals to refuge, you remade me, my appeal eternal. Rings exchanged, simple bands etched, mens rea et amore, kiss salt freighted by breeze, cheers crashing wave-like. Honeymoon idyll, Vermont cabin, greens and golds, no briefs intruding, hikes hand in hand, leaf-peeping drives, nights by stone hearth, bodies slow dancing to Coltrane. Vulnerability crested one fog-mantled morn, Elias admitting the claw's haunts, my shame's shadow. Arthur held him through tears, response woven, shadows pass. Your light now. Return grounded them, joint practice launch, Hale Cain Advocacy, a hybrid public-private firm in Dumbo Lofts, pro bono core, corporate consults funding. First client, a trans teen from Flatbush, discrimination suit, their tag team intake electric, victory a template for more. Crisis's coda, summer heat wave redux, Elias's dip flaring under caseload crush, hospitalization brief, lithium tweak, Arthur bedside vigilant, Lena flying support. Discharge brought recommit, Sabbath Sundays, no work edicts enforced by mutual veto. Balance hour briefs, Arthur quipped, Elias's recovery grin returning. Years layered, humanistic bloom, mentorships multiplying, Arthur guesting Columbia, Elias lecturing antitrust ethics, family expansions, adoption talks tentative, twins playdates prelude, travels stitching souls, Charleston crawfish boils, Connecticut clam bakes, a Paris jaunt where Louvre echoes sparked case analogies over croissants. The Arc's pinnacle, 10th anniversary, Dunes revisited, guests evolved, Theo partnered now, Riley law graduated, Marcus tenured professor vows renewed impromptu, sunset gilding, words deepened, enemies taught endurance, love, grace. Dance barefoot, waves lapping, hearts unbroken.